KCRA-3's Brian Hickey was at the fire all morning long, going to different hot spots.
This is where our morning started here along Geysers Road. When we got here, this hillside behind us was fully involved in fire, swirling fire with wind shifting directions every few seconds, and that is the condition fire crews were dealing with. Take a look at this video. And this is what I'm talking about. When we got here, this area was glowing almost as if it was daylight under the glow of this intense fire that was ravaging this hillside and burning buildings in its path. We knew there were structures up here, didn't know exactly what was burning at the time, but now by daylight, we can see that homes have been lost in this area. But the wind overnight was the story. The wind was constantly changing directions, fueled by the terrain here as well in these steep canyons that have remote roads, and that made it very difficult for fire crews to get to the fires, and if they could get to it, really had to evaluate whether or not they wanted to go in those roads, as the fire was going in all different directions that could have easily closed off their only way out of some of those areas. So a very difficult, very dangerous fire for crews overnight, where wind gusts were recorded at 70 miles per hour over the ridge tops, and down in the canyons 30 to 40 miles per hour. Down along Red Winery Road at the Robert Young Estate, fire crews protected some of the structures there, including the tasting room and other buildings, historic buildings along Red Winery Road there. The vineyards on the other side also acted as a good fire break as wind continued to howl even down through the flatlands. By daylight, we got to look at this home off of Red Winery Road. Look at this, a tree split in half. It fell and split that home in half. That home is nowhere near the fire line, but suffered significant damage. Then as we made our way back here to Geysers Road, we found several homes along the canyon entrance that had burned. And sadly, I was not surprised to see those homes burned. A very dangerous fire for crews again in this area. And we know that many more homes have been lost overnight, as crews will get a chance by daylight now to go in and assess the damage and what is left in the path of this very destructive fire overnight. At the Kincade Fire, Brian Hickey, KCRA-3 News.
Well, you can see and hear the intensity of these flames. Winds driving this fire to at least 10,000 acres.
And that number expected to go up, obviously, as we get our first look at the damage that's been left behind. We know some homes have burned, like this one in Geyserville. You can see for yourself the flames and the pile of debris that's left over. Some items are unrecognizable, like a bed frame and an ironing board, but there is still very little else left.
Let's give you another look at where the fire is burning. It's northeast of Geyserville. That's near Highway 101, about 20 miles north of Santa Rosa. And you can see how that fire has progressed since it started around 9:30 last night, burning from a rural area down south toward a more populated area.
And now we have some live aerial pictures, and you can see a really large blackened area of ground there. Not as much smoke as we saw just 4 hours ago during the noon hour here on KCRA-3. Little smoke compared to what we saw just 4 hours ago, but you can see how rural this area really is.
We have KCRA-3 live team coverage of the fire. We begin with Max Resnick. He is live near Geyserville. Max?
And we're on Geysers Road, and you can see the damage behind me here, how that fire swept through this area, taking out this grass and some trees here. In fact, we just heard one come down, and this is one of the homes that burned. You mentioned some damage here. We've seen close to 10, we would guess, homes or other structures that have burned to the ground as a result of the Kincade fire on both sides of us, both to our left and to our right. This is a fire that broke out around 9:30 last night and quickly grew to 10,000 acres. That number, as you mentioned, expected to grow. 60 to 70 mile-per-hour winds drove these towering flames up and down Geysers Road, torching brush, grass, and trees, and taking out homes and other buildings. CAL FIRE says the strength of those winds made it difficult to contain.
The fire was really just outpacing the firefight. So it was everything we could do to try to stay ahead of it, but 10,000 acres came fairly quickly.
Throughout much of the afternoon, the winds died down a bit. We saw air takers making multiple retardant drops just a few hours ago as they try to solidify that perimeter around this fire. We've also seen multiple helicopters making water runs and drops, and in many cases, in fact, we've seen helicopters coming just above us to make those water runs and then head that way to make those drops. CAL FIRE is talking about what's expected over the weekend, potentially stronger winds coming over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, potentially into Monday. So it's critical that they get a handle on this now. now, with the potential perhaps fire jumping over what they've already contained. Reporting live in Geyserville, Max Resnick, KCRA-3 News.
But I gotta say, Max, just in the last 4 hours, it looks like the conditions are really improving just in terms of how much smoke was in the area just 4 hours ago.
Certainly, yeah, and that's a good point to make, Lisa. If I can show you just behind me here, it may be difficult to see. That is the smoke cloud that is just above us, but if you look to the right, we have blue skies. So the conditions here do seem to be better. The winds are light, but it is still very warm here, at least at this point. So it is important that CAL FIRE does get a handle on this fire before the weather changes again coming up in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, it is a warm one today for sure. Max Resnick, thanks for the live report. Now take a look at this. We shot this video earlier this morning. You can look at these embers. Look at how big they are falling on the ground as they rain down. Look at as they rain down on the dry grass there. They start those little spot fires along the hillside. This is how it happens, burning right up against the road there, and you can see an electrical pole there on the left. Of course, these are the conditions that crews were dealing with overnight.
This is KCRA-3. We begin with breaking news.
And that breaking news comes from the scene of this massive wildfire in Sonoma County. New information just into our KCRA-3 newsroom. There was what appears to have been a significant problem at a PG&E transmission tower near where a wildfire started last night. That's coming from a PG&E report that was filed with state regulators. Also this morning, PG&E crews reported finding broken equipment on that tower. It's important to note that the cause of the fire, though, has still not been determined. Live team coverage for you right now. We're starting with KCRA-3's Max Resnick. He is on the ground for us in Geyserville. Max.
Yeah, we're on Geysers Road, and we actually have a helicopter working just to my right now. This has been an area where they've been picking up water from a source here and then taking it over this way to make drops on some hot spots. And you can see how the fire moved through this area and then over to our right. One of at least 10 structures we've seen burned in this fire. This clearly was somebody's home. This is a fire that broke out around 9:30 last night. It quickly grew to 10,000 acres. That number expected to grow. 60 to 70 mile-an-hour winds drove these towering flames up and down this road. And as you can see, torching brush, grass, and trees, taking out these homes and other buildings. At one point this morning, our crew stood by as embers rained down in the area as a hillside then caught fire in a matter of seconds. CAL FIRE says the strength of those winds made it difficult to contain with the fire outpacing them. And now with the winds much calmer compared to what we saw about 12 hours ago, it's critically important that they get a handle on this now before the weekend when more and potentially stronger winds could be in the area.
Very important that we hit it really hard with the boots on the ground and the aircraft and really get as much work in as we can before those next round of winds come up, because the potential for something to come out of our fire and blow across our lines will be there.
And throughout the day, we've seen air tankers making multiple retardant drops as they try to solidify a perimeter around this fire. We've also seen helicopters making runs and drops, and there's a helicopter that should be lifting up from our area right now, getting ready to make one of those drops. An estimated 2,000 people from hundreds of homes were evacuated here in Geyserville. So far, no injuries reported. The cause of the fire, as you mentioned, under investigation. Live in Geyserville, Max Resnick, KCRA-3 News.
Yeah, we can hear the crews above you there as they're working now that the winds have died down, at least for now. Max. Thanks.
On the ground, scenes of utter destruction. A number of structures and homes have burned. The exact numbers aren't known. CAL FIRE is still working to slow the flames before they can get a total.
So we want to give you a look at where the fire is burning as we zoom in here on the map. It's northeast of the town of Geyserville, and that's near Highway 101, about 20 miles or so north of Santa Rosa. And you can see how the fire has progressed from north to south since it started around 9:30 last night, burning from a rural part toward a more populated area.
With that, we have live team coverage on the wildfire. Meteorologist Mark Finan will have a check on the weather conditions for us in just a moment. But let's start with Max Resnick. He is live in Geyserville in Sonoma County. Max?
Yeah, and this is Geysers Road, and you can see one of the homes that has been destroyed right behind me here, and then here are the remnants of another home. This appears to be a garage that was tied to a home here that was also destroyed. We've heard helicopters making water drops overhead, working just behind us and then moving over this way. This is still an active fight with a long way to go. The Kincade Fire broke out around 9:30 last night and quickly grew to 10,000 acres. That number expected to grow. 60 to 70 mile-an-hour winds drove these towering flames up and down Geysers Road, torching brush, grass, and trees and taking out homes and other buildings. CAL FIRE says the strength of those winds made the fire difficult to contain.
And the fire was really just outpacing the firefight. So it was everything we could do to try to stay ahead of it, but 10,000 acres came fairly quickly.
As the fire burns, NorCal Livestock Evac drives into the flames to save any animals it can.
On this fire, we spent a lot of last night evacuating one big horse ranch, and then today we've just been running all over. I don't know how many, but it's been under 100 this fire, which is nice.
In Sonoma County, tankers make retardant drops. Helicopters hit hot spots with water. Now with calmer winds, CAL FIRE says it's critically important to get a handle on the Kincade Fire before the weekend, when more and potentially stronger winds could be in the area.
Very important that we hit it really hard with the boots on the ground and the aircraft and really get as much work in as we can before those next round of winds come up, because the potential for something to come out of our fire and blow across our lines will be there.
An estimated 2,000 people have been evacuated here from Geyserville. So far, no injuries reported. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Live in Geyserville, Max Resnick, KCRA-3 News.
Okay, thanks for the latest, Max.
So here's the latest on this from CAL FIRE. The update we got was around 7 o'clock tonight. 16,000 acres have burned with containment at 5%. CAL FIRE says at least 49 structures have been destroyed. 2,000 people are away from their homes tonight.
We have live team coverage. KCRA-3 Chief Meteorologist Mark Finan has been tracking the wind conditions in Sonoma County tonight.
Let's begin with Marley Martinez, though. She is live in Healdsburg, where people have been evacuated there. Marley?
Well, over 100 people are seeking shelter here tonight, and the mayor of Healdsburg says half of those people work at vineyards in the area, many of them unsure if their homes are still standing. As Geyserville plunges into darkness once again, evacuees are left in awe of what they narrowly escaped.
When I opened the screen door, you couldn't see my hand. That's how thick the smoke was, and the fire was so bad on the mountains.
Madonna and Victor Tavares live in Geyserville. They're now at the evacuation shelter in neighboring Healdsburg after a stranger came knocking at 5:30 in the morning.
It was like somebody put a bomb out, and all of a sudden you hear the screaming, bam, 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 get out, quick.
They've lived in wine country for decades, but this is the first time they've escaped a wildfire.
This time was a lot different, yeah. Because we saw the fire coming over the hill.
Thankfully, they packed the night before, just in case.
Say hi.
On the way out, grabbing what was most important.
Huh? Were you scared? Your adrenaline goes and you do what you have to do quickly because you're trying to save your life. And that's what we did. We grabbed our dogs and we got in the car and we left.
Come nightfall, their home is still standing, while others aren't so lucky.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen next. Right now, we just got to take 1 minute at a time.
As crews cut back brush in their neighborhood, PG&E now looking into whether their equipment started this fire.
But they need to do something, because you can't be doing this every time you turn around and go to bed and not know if you're going to be alive or not. That's not right.
Thankfully, the Tavares' home is still standing, but just down the road, we saw structures reduced to rubble. We also drove around the area to check on fire crews. They are deep in the mountains fighting those flames. Live in Healdsburg, Marley Martinez, KCRA-3 News.
Okay, Marley, thanks for the update.